I'm Jo Dunkley and I'm a professor of physics and I study the universe. Welcome to my exp. So when I look up in the sky, I see, like others, these beautiful twinkling stars. But I do love the fact that now we have some more certainty that many of those stars are their own solar systems and they have their own planets around them. And so I sort of see them and they're so far away and they just see them as a dot of light. But this knowledge now that many of them have planets around them enriches the experience of staring into the night sky. We call them exoplanets or sometimes extrasolar planets. It's just a designation that they are planets around a different star. They're a different solar system. So they're outside our own solar system. Astronomers have long thought that other stars likely had their own planets around them, but they just didn't know whether they were there because planets are incredibly hard to see. We're measuring light from stars, very bright stars, and if they have planets around them, like our Earth around the Sun, then finding them is an enormous technological challenge. So you can have an idea that says, well, I wonder if they're out there, but you need the technology to actually be able to see them. And there's been these great advances in the ways in which you can actually find these tiny planets. So when I think about these solar systems in galaxies beyond our own and in our own galaxy, I think of just the incredible richness that they must include, because the ones that we've been able to see so far are all pretty nearby in our own Milky Way. But if I think about the fact that our Milky Way has 100 billion stars in it, and then that there are at least 100 billion galaxies in our visible universe that each have, that many stars. And if a large proportion of those have their own planets around them, which I think we have no reason not to think is true at the moment based on local observations, then just the wealth, the richness is incredible. We already have a sense of the variety of planets compared to our own solar system. There are different solar systems where the planets orbit their star in just hours, which none of our solar system planets do. None of them go that quickly, and that there can be, vastly different numbers of planets in the system. Some of them orbit two stars. You can imagine having two suns in the sky. Some of them may be purely covered in lava. Some of them may be purely covered in water. The variety of sizes and composition just must be immense. We're just starting to learn more about what they might be made of. So even though I don't study the details of these planets myself, because I study the universe, the whole thing, I do think a lot about the extent to which I feel sure there must be this huge variety of solar systems and planets. And to me, that's why it's very likely that there would be life elsewhere, just because of the sheer numbers. So if we want to understand if there is life elsewhere, it's a hard challenge because, again, we can't go to these places. We can just look here on Earth as astronomers and gather signals. One of the frontiers that people are making great progress on now is to try and look at the composition of the atmosphere of these planets, because particular gases that you might find in an atmosphere are either sort of conducive of life or you might say would be predicted from life. And so one of the great advances happening at the moment is to use telescopes to try and measure the atmospheres of these planets in greater detail. And at the same time to use the very largest, highest resolution telescopes to try and image some of them. Because it's so hard and these objects are so faint and so far away, it's new telescopes that we'll need as well. So with our existing telescopes, we can make so much progress, but then we'll need to have new, bigger, more advanced ones to go and look for these signatures in more detail. So when I first learned about the possible futures of the universe, one of the options was a big crunch, where the universe stopped expanding and shrunk back down again to the reverse of the Big Bang. And the other options were that it kept growing forever. Now, what I find interesting is that in the last 20 years, we had removed this idea of a big crunch, because with the model of the universe we have now, if we're right about it, it wouldn't produce a big crunch in the future. And the reason for that is that the expansion of the universe is speeding up. The universe is growing faster and faster at the moment. And this is this effect of dark energy. And if that stays behaving as it seems to be now, then we wouldn't expect the universe to ever stop growing and to shrink back down to a big crunch. And so I sort of recall, even in my own sort of career, going through a phase of saying, well, yeah, the big crunch is not going to happen anymore, right? Dark energy is there, it's going to keep growing. I would say now that I don't know, because until we've understood the nature of this dark energy, to me, all bets are off, all futures are possible. While we have these major components, this dark matter, this dark energy, that we don't fully understand, then I wouldn't like to rule out these different possible scenarios. Maybe it will change its behavior. Maybe we haven't fully understood it. So while I will say in the standard model right now, the big crunch shouldn't happen, I will also say, who knows? Other things are possible. I love this piece of history coming from astronomer Edmund Halley, who realized that the way to measure the size of our solar system came from observing a transit of Venus across the sun. But he also realized that he wasn't going to be alive to see the next one. And so he exhorted to younger astronomers to go and make the measurements. And to me, there's something really magical about it, because he wrote this and he said, basically go and do this. And I won't be able to, but you can. And they did. And it happened. And they measured the size of the solar system and they measured the distance to the sun. And I see astronomy full of these kind of examples when the technology just hadn't caught up with the ideas, or in that case, just the configuration of the solar system wasn't going to be right for these observations during that lifetime. And so I see that as being our role too, that we get to do a bit of the learning and discovery during our professional lives. But the most important thing is to train more junior researchers to then become the next generation of scientists, because to answer all the questions there will always be more questions, but to even answer the questions we have now is a long journey. When I would be encouraging the younger scientists, to me, the key is to keep looking and looking in new and unusual ways, because generally the new ideas come from the unexpected. So now there was this prediction from Halley that was an expected event and that happened. But so often in astronomy, things are changed because we find something that we never expected. So be it look in different wavelengths, look in different ways, try and develop your observations to not only look for the thing that you would like to find, but to be open to things that you were never expecting. And to understand that it's a long journey. It's a journey that's going to take generations to keep doing, and so to keep up our scientific kind of establishment, but to keep trying to think outside the box too.